the goddess Athena, who is known by the Romans as Dea Roma and Minerva. She is equated by the Greeks with the Egyptian goddess Neith, who is the patron goddess of Sais, Egypt, possessing very similar traits. But both of these goddesses can trace these traits to the goddess Anat, Canaanite Ugaritic goddess, with the epithets such as the virgin and wisdom, clearly possessing similar traits as this goddess. Nike, victory; Pallas Athena, Athena Sophia of wisdom; the Parthenos, Athena the virgin. Some go as even far to equate her with the Hindu god Saraswati for being the goddess of knowledge and wisdom as well. However, it's clear that Minerva and Athena are the same god with the same origin story. To prevent any more confusion, I'm going to call her by her Latin name, Minerva, from here on out. Her origin story goes all the way back to the time before Jupiter deposed Saturn. The nymphs of the mountain and the ocean in Crete, without the knowledge of Cronus, raised Jupiter, the father of gods and men. By that time, he was in love with the nymph Metis. She was the most prudent of all the nymphs. She decisively helped Zeus win victory over deposing his father Saturn, who ate his own children. She gave Jupiter the magical herb, which forced the terrible child-eater Cronus to pull out of his stomach all the gods he had swallowed. Metis was the first wife of Zeus. At a feast held in Olympus to formalize their relationship, Ouranos and Gaia revealed to the very grandson that Metis would give him firstly a daughter and then a son who would become so strong that he would become the first of the gods. This is a reference to Dionysus, but the daughter would come first. This daughter is Minerva. The oracle from his ancestors put him into thinking. Therefore, when he saw that Metis was pregnant, he could not settle down. Jupiter asked for an herb from his grandmother Gaia. Whoever ate the herb would become as small as the size of a little finger. Gaia did not refuse to favor and asked, and she gave him the herb. Then Jupiter ran on Metis and gave it to her to swallow, saying that this herb would help her give birth to strong children. Metis believed him. Swallowing this herb, she became diminishing. Jupiter opened his huge mouth and swallowed her. He did the same trick as his father did, but he ate his wife and the child that was in her womb. Once Jupiter swallowed her, he immediately gained all the wisdom of the world. He knew every moment what was good and what was bad. After a few days, he started to get a headache, and discomfort became more and more intense as the headache got stronger. Jupiter was in terrible pain. All goddesses tried to soothe him with magic herbs, but nothing seemed to ease the pain. He screamed and knocked on the ground, so that the whole Olympus echoed and trembled by his voice. One night, Jupiter could not bear it anymore. And there's two versions of this story. One is that he called in Prometheus, who was given the double-headed axe by Hephaestus to come and relieve the pain. In another version, it's Hephaestus himself who comes with a huge hammer. The moment Zeus saw him and said, "Quickly, give my head a strike with your hammer in order to save me once and for all from this torment." The divine blacksmith rolled his eyes and refused to do so. But Jupiter was not joking. Enraged, he threatened Hephaestus that he will throw him from Olympus. And so Hephaestus, or Prometheus, struck the head of Jupiter, and then in front of everyone's eyes, sprang from the head of Jupiter, full-armored, gray-eyed daughter, Minerva, holding the shield, wearing a helmet, waved menacingly a spear. Minerva, the goddess of war, but also the patron of wisdom. Minerva inherited her father's omnipotence and wisdom of Metis. Here's what Proclus has to say about Minerva. And thus much concerning the planetary deities, who were called by the ancients the governors of the world. The next place, therefore, let us direct our attention to what Plato, his best interpreter Proclus, have transmitted to us concerning Minerva. The divinity connected with the ether also has an allotment in the celestial regions. Plato, in Timaeus, describes this goddess both a lover of war and a lover of wisdom, for he says that she is philopolemic and philosophic, as she everywhere, however, exerts this twofold power according to her intellectual, supermundane, and mundane substance. I shall present what Proclus says, representing the two powers of the goddess. In his commentary on what part of the Timaeus where she is celebrated by Plato, in the demiurgus and father, says he of the whole world, many orders of gods that had the form of the one present themselves to the view, and those are of a guardian or demiurgic, elevating, connective, perfective characteristic. But the undefiled and untamed deity Minerva is one of the first intellectual unities subsisting in the demiurgus, according to which he himself remains firm and immutable, and all things proceeding from him participate of the inflexible power, and through which he intellectually perceives everything, and is separate in an exempt manner from all beings. All theologists, therefore, call this divinity Minerva, as being brought forth indeed from the summit of her father, and abiding in him, being the demiurgic, separate, and immaterial intelligence. Hence Socrates, in the Cratylus, celebrates her as Theonoe, or deific intellection, but as in conjunction with other divinities, sustaining all things in the one demiurgus, and arranging wholes together with her father. Through the first of these, they denominate her philosophic, but through the second, philopolemic. For she, who according to the form of one connectedly, contains all the paternal wisdom as a philosopher, and she who invariably rules over all the contrary, may be properly called a lover of war. Hence Orpheus, speaking of her birth, says that Jupiter generated her from his head, with armor shining like brazen flower. Since, however, it was necessary that she should proceed in second and third orders, she appears in the order to which Persephone belongs, according to the undefiled heptad, but she generates every virtue from herself, and elevating powers, and illuminates secondary natures with intellect and an undefiled life. Hence she is called Cor Trajacenes. She likewise appears among the liberated gods uniting the lunar order with the intellectual and demiurgic light, causing the productions of the divinities to be undefiled, and demonstrating the one unity of them to be unmingled with their depending powers. She also appears in the heavens, sublunary region, and according to the united gift of herself, imparts the cause both of the philosophic and the philopolemic power. For her, inflexibility is intellectual, and her separate wisdom is pure and unmingled with secondary natures. And the one characteristic peculiarity of Minerval providence extends as far as to the last orders. For since whatever there are partial souls that resemble her divinity, they exert an admirable prudence and exhibit an unconquerable strength, what we ought to say of her attendant corps of daemons and divine, mundane, liberated, and ruling orders. For all these receive as from a fountain the 20-fold peculiarity of this goddess. Hence also the divine poet Homer, indicating both these powers of Minerva in conjunction with fabulous devices, says, "The radiant field her sacred fingers wove floats in rich waves and spreads the court of Jove. Her father's warlike robe her limbs invest, in which verses by the veil which she wove, and to which she gave substance by her intellections, her intellectual wisdom is signified. But by the warlike robe of Jupiter we must understand her demiurgic powers, which immutably takes care of mundane natures, and prepares more divine beings, always to have dominion in the world. Hence also, I think Homer represents her as an associate in battle with the Greeks against the barbarians, just as Plato here relates that she was an associate with the Greeks against the inhabitants of the Atlantic island, in order that everywhere more intellectual and divine natures may rule over such as are more irrational and vile. For Mars is also a friend to war and contrarieties, but with the separation and division more adapted to the things themselves. Minerva, however, connects contrariety and illuminates the subjects of her government with union. Hence, likewise, she is said to be philopolemic, or strife, fighting, war, she always loves. And she is a friend to war indeed, because she is allotted the summit of separation. But she is a lover of the contrarieties, because these are in certain respect congregated through this goddess, in consequence of better natures having dominion. On this account likewise the ancients co-arranged victory, Nike, with Minerva.